using all of the applications. The variations where you may offer them the option of taking one dice away. You can keep 2 of those dice, you need to get close to 30. You can roll one of the dice again, maybe it gives them a better number. Can you use addition? Can you use subtraction? Later on, multiplication, division, in order to get close to that number, whatever that number may be. Odds and evens, just bringing up the vocabulary so they're as used to it as possible. Other games, Don't Roll It aims to reach 100, see who can do that in the least amount of rolls possible, so they're counting all the way. It brings in the element of competitiveness, that they want to win that game, so they're eager to count, and they're really extending their minds as far as they possibly can. And then there are online games. There are many apps for iPads, for iPhones, and here are some examples of games that are online that you can use with your children. So we'll talk about strategies, because we do have quite a few strategies that we use in the classroom. So that really we're giving children options, we're giving them decisions to make on which work best for them. We're all different, nothing works for the same person. So it's good for them to really see, right, there's more than one way of doing this. I'm going to make a decision which is best for me. And so we all think differently. As I said earlier, we put great emphasis on mental calculations. Often in class, children's go-to is to start writing the column subtraction, additions. When I'd rather put the whiteboards away, you can do this mentally. So as much as they can, really, until the numbers become too big where it's not possible for them anymore, really try and do everything mentally. The last thing they do should be to write down the answer. Maths is all about the process. It's important that they go through the process of working these things out. Children shouldn't be really, unless they are exceptional and start using bigger numbers, they shouldn't really be exposed to column addition until they get to year 2. Really want to push constant. Informal jottings are fine. If they're partitioning the numbers and doing it that way, that's fine, so they can see what they've got. But really shouldn't be using standard column until year 2, year 3. Like I was saying earlier, one of the main quotes I get is the maths is not taught the way I did it at home. And there have been changes to traditional methods. So we're really looking at the skills of partitioning, at taking numbers apart, at having mental ways of working things out. I'll just talk about how that applies in addition. So what I've been talking about quite a bit, partitioning. So as you can see, there's emphasis on place value. So that's why it's so important that they have a real keen understanding of place value, because it really comes in to these methods of partitioning, of recognizing 245, of knowing what the 2 stands for. It's not a 2, as children will try to do in standard column addition. It's a 200, it's 200. Whereas a 40, it's not a 4, it's 4 tens. Really drilling that understanding. The number lines also really help in aid of counting mentally. It allows them to see those steps of where they're going in their heads. And here's an example in the small one. A young child may have small numbers where they're just adding up in steps of 1. So that number line, after getting familiarized with it, they can then begin to see that in their head and take those steps in their head. And as the numbers become bigger, they start to add in larger chunks of recognizing multiples of 10. One of the difficult things children often have is that step between the multiple of 10. From, for example, 19 to 20 when they're doing these steps. So a number line allows them to really see where they're going with the numbers. And as their ability grows, they're chunking numbers together. So instead of adding just 1 at a time, they can see if they're adding a 30. I can add on the 30. So they're still partitioning. They're adding on a 30, they're adding on a 4. So all of these methods link in with each other, but sometimes children will prefer one over the other. Now moving on to subtraction. One of the main things we like for children to do is see the links between numbers, to see that subtraction is the opposite to addition. And when you're asking to subtract, what you mean is what's the difference between one number and the other. And one way they can do that is start at a small number and count forward towards the bigger number, which it's far easier to do mentally than taking away. Taking away mentally can be really difficult. So there's a number line counting backwards, which children can do. It allows them just to go one at a time. And again, they're with bigger numbers, we're starting to take away bigger chunks of numbers in order to do it. And again, taking them past multiples of 10, and it's allowing them ways of doing things mentally. Then there's the counting up. So the more connections you can make between applications, the better. Adding and subtraction are the inverse operations. They have connections to each other. If you start lower bottom and count up, that's the difference between those numbers. That's what subtraction is asking for, the difference. And multiplication. So multiplication and division are the two most difficult concepts for children in Key Stage 1. Now, here's where we keep making links to the other operations. Now, basically, multiplication is repeated addition. So 3 times 7 means 7 and 7 and 7. So we get the children to group these numbers together, they're chunking. So we see them as groups of, or lots of. What are 3 groups of 7? And the more concrete objects they have, the easier to do. They can arrange them. So they go one group of 7, another group of 7, another group of 7, and at the end can count them all up together. Again, it's making those links. And it's the same with division. So obviously division is the inverse operation from multiplication. So again, it's groups. So asking, for example, 37 divided by 3, it's asking how many 3s are in 37. They can keep making groups of 3s until they get to 37. So again, it's really linking in everything together, really consolidating children's understanding of numbers, which is the most important aspect. Any questions? Okay, so for any of you, maybe our friends who didn't come today, or you weren't able to get a handout, these are saved in the parent section of Firefly. And also, I've got a handout that you can use at home with your children. It consolidates some of the methods we use and gives you a chance to use these with your children at home. I only have a limited number at the moment, but these again will be available on Firefly. Yes? No, it's what we use for learning in school. It's the scheme that we follow from year 1 to year 6.
So you're also using the books at school and
Yeah.
the online portion?
Yeah.
And these assessments are taking place right now individually?
Yeah, they're part of the lesson. So it's not our formal assessment, it's completely informal. And it's just for us as teachers to see where we are, where the children are, and when we're ready to move on with our next learning. So we have an online tracking tool, which is a simple click and drag. So whenever we receive them in from the children, we can just click and drag and place in the objectives which they've achieved or not achieved. So it really helps us when we're reporting back to you with our school reports. So really having a real educated opinion of where they are, rather than sort of trying to think back the lesson, looking through their books. This is after the learning, this is what they can do. So it helps us in that way. Okay, thanks for coming.